All right, all right. We've got a great stream today with one of my favorite people ever that was shifted from Toronto, a place I've never been, but always talk about going to another happening place out in Miami where I got to imagine he fits right in. Welcome, Ori, to the stream today.
How's it going, man? Thank you for having me.
It's going well. It's going well. It's good to catch up, and it's good to absolutely see you cooking per usual. How has the Miami life been treating you out there?
Miami's been good. I've been here now 3 years, 2.5 years, and I love it. I love it. It's a growing place. There's tons of startups coming here. It's really happening.
Yeah, it's crazy when you're out there. I come in doses and I just happen to be there during events. So probably even more so. But it just seems like so many people are locked in over there or trying to do stuff. It seems like people are really striving to build their businesses, interact, network, and it's a really kind of healthier networking environment than a lot of places I've been.
Yeah, it's look, you like a lot of cities, you'll find what you're looking for here. So obviously, a lot of people come here looking for the Miami party scene that exists, obviously, but you've got a very serious work culture that's like growing here. As Miami has become less of a place that tourists come and more of a place that people come to live. So that you've seen that culture shift.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm seeing a lot. I've even seen on the blockchain side or the crypto side, there's tons there. On the tech innovation side, there's tons there. It seems like so many industries that are blossoming are choosing a couple core areas. Austin seems to be the podcaster and somewhat tech. Miami, it seems to be a lot of entrepreneurs, but then also you've got the mix of still big money and everything floating around there, big real estate and New York. Those seem to be some of the three hotbeds of talent lately.
Yeah, 100%. Austin is actually incredible. It's been booming as well. But yeah, we found investors here. We went to tech conferences here. Like Miami's been really good to us.
That's awesome. And I'd love, we'll go through a lot of things today, but I always like to start off just so people can get to know you a little bit. Early days, before you get into the industry, before we get into what you're doing now and kind of the road there. Where were you? Like what I know you started in banking. I know that was thing. When did you know that was the vision? And then, how did that become the beginning of your whole career arc?
Man, long story. But yeah, so as you can tell from my accent, I grew up in England, which explains why I sound a bit different. But I moved to Canada, I was like 17, 16, and I went into finance. Started off in banking, like you said. I was a trader. I was at Goldman and then TD, and I was working on equities and equity derivatives. And what got me interested initially in the blockchain was when I was in trading, we were working a lot with obviously like old school inefficient processes like settlement, 2 day waits, um, dealing with booking errors that came from like bad emails or typos, things like that. A lot of your stuff still happens over Bloomberg. And when blockchain came out, I was like, okay, there's a lot of logic to instant settlement that happens immediately on a ledger. And that kind of sparked my interest in RWAs and like real world assets trading on the blockchain. And then when NFTs came out, I quit my job a few weeks later and I started building my first business.
That's incredible. It's really fun to see when people make the pivot from really being deep in the engine of finances and seeing it from that side. And then although I would say in a lot of ways we're just now seeing some of the best use cases and application of the technology after a lot of grifty time in there.
Mhm.
It's it's got to be refreshing to see so many people that are in that industry and then see the benefits and see the speed and see the transparency and go, no, I want that. Like that's the thing
Yeah.
that's makes more sense to embed into.
Well, look, those opportunities where tech can fix this tiny little problem are typically not the most sexy. So if I told you, like, I don't know, when I started my career, that I was going to go into automating settlements when I was a trader, I can tell you for sure being a trader is way more cool than fixing settlements. but it's a problem that has a massive amount of opportunity and really impacts a bunch of people. Um, and you're never going to have a massive amount of success doing it internally from a big company. If you want to like genuinely control the narrative and actually fix a problem internationally, you've got to do it from your own business where you can actually control the way things are executed. Um, and that was a piece of advice. I actually believe it was my boss who gave it to me when I was like piloting a concept very early on, as like basically as a student. He told me like you're not gonna have success doing this internally through the incubators. You have to go and do this for yourself. Um, so I did. Like a lot of things pushed me in that direction, but it's not easy doing it from inside the big corporate machine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody who's been in bigger companies compared to startups or entrepreneur, like running it yourself, the pace of change is slow. Like it is
Yeah.
very hard to disrupt, and they're not super interested in disruption. They're more interested in very small changes because they've already somewhat established their market position for the most part.
hmm Yeah, and that incremental difference isn't going to be huge for them. And they also don't want the bad PR of impacting jobs, right? If you impact all of middle office and you create a whole settlement process that cleans it up, you're talking about changing a lot of jobs, and that doesn't reflect well on the bank.
100%. And you have also, I mean, you had the early stage of at least some people that were willing to rock the boat a little bit. I don't know if you saw, you probably did, when like Jack Dorsey's big layoff, you had Coinbase with
Mhm.
their big layoff, and some people really leaned in, whether, there's juries out if how true people feel it is or not, but they were able to utilize the narrative of AI and say, hey, this, it just doesn't make sense for us to have this size anymore.
Mhm.
We're going to go ahead and step forward and bank on the fact that AI continues to progress. And we're just going to give great severances. Like, how do you feel in that world, seeing that's real world examples of application of technology decreasing some of these workforces?
Yeah, look, by definition, technology is out there to help us improve efficiency, right? If it takes 10 people to analyze a spreadsheet with Claude, I can do it in 30 minutes if I plug it in, right? So it's meant to be an efficiency tool to help people focus on the stuff that's more important and let the machine do the stuff that's monotonous and repetitive. Um, if I went back to my corporate job now, I assure you my job would be completely different, just because most of the stuff I did is probably automated at this point. Um, and I think that's normal for the evolution of tech, is that it it automates the stuff we don't want to be doing, and it lets us focus and think about the stuff we want to actually be making decisions on.
When you look at a lot of those things, and when you look at that, like how AI is impacting things, yeah, it's hard to not. I mean, there's so many stories around it. We won't go too super deep into it because I'm sure it'll float in throughout the conversation. But it is so interesting in the early days, the fear slash excitement consistently,
hmm
depending who you are in your application of it. That it's crazy even from 6 months, or like basically 6 months ago, when Opus and all these incredible versions of AI came out, the the total shift where all of a sudden vibe coding was at a pretty strong level at that point. And then it's gotten stronger and stronger. And you're even seeing now developers be saying, hey, I, I'm coding alongside somebody who's very light in coding experience, and the outputs are not very far off for how much experience I have. And that's
Yeah.
a super interesting place to be in from an
hmm
innovation standpoint.
Yeah. It just shows you that you can now develop the same, if not better, quality outputs with a fraction of the team. um like I'm in the tech startup space. Like we're building stuff that most large enterprises would be striving to produce with 5 guys. So it's doable thanks to AI, right? Like otherwise I don't think we'd be able to produce a product of this scale. It's near impossible.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to go into that a little bit, because I love the aspect of how lean your company is. And I think that really is the way of the future, is companies that stay lean longer so that they don't have to require so much capital up front. And you can go into a lot of that. I know
Yeah.
that's really your background, but talk to us a little bit about Titl. First, lay it out there so people know exactly what it is, and then drive into it a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll give a bit of the background, but basically after
Yeah.
banking, I went into the NFT space, which is where I met you.
Yeah.
And
Fun
what
times.
fascinated me about NFTs was the ability to transfer ownership of an asset instantly with a ledger and track its provenance and ownership. So
Yeah.
I went into art, physical art, sports memorabilia, watches. I did all that stuff. I even dabbled in metaverses for a little bit. Um, and then met my co-founder Tori along the way, and Tori basically said, "Why don't you figure this out on real estate?" And we started tackling literally like off of a concept. How do you transfer ownership of a house using an NFT? That was the original concept. And we got to the hurdle that the title is one of the slowest processes in the real estate transfer. It takes 2 weeks to gather all this information, to review it, if not more.
Yeah.
And all the data is scattered all over the place. So every municipality in town has their own database with PDFs, papers, and so on. Um, so we started trying to figure out how we get all of that information onto a blockchain, and then AI kind of solved most of those problems for us. So obviously our ability to code and scale and build a product was amplified by AI, but also our ability to read and analyze documents and have um, essentially a mind making like analytical decisions for us, helping us analyze documents and find the right path was huge. It was a game changer in what we developed. Um, so yeah, so that's what we do. We're really just like a title searching data company.
Okay. Okay. That's that. So for the everyday person or for people within, you know, how would you pose that to people in the, or do you not pose it as much to just the everyday person who's maybe not as familiar with the real estate world, exactly how things transfer? What is the through line of the opportunity that you saw in making these decisions from an everyday investor that's not real estate oriented, or an everyday person, even talking to your
Mhm.
family, who's just like, oh, not to say your specific family, they may be really good in real estate, but in general, yeah, how do you kind of frame that up so that the everyday person understands the gap?
Yeah. So when you like, in order to understand the process of buying a home, you have to like really the core of it is the property title. It's finding essentially the history of the ownership, and you have to be able to do that 50 years plus. You have to be able to track every mortgage that every owner of this house had and who released it and so on. It's a massive amount of work that typically lawyers or title examiners would do. Um, and that all added towards why closing fees were so high, title insurance is so high, and all those things. Um, so essentially, a massive amount of inefficiency and cost that the end buyer faces is a result of this data being difficult to find.
Okay.
Um, so what we really wanted to do is build the database that made everything easy. So blockchain is a fantastic solution for securing and even like monitoring the data, but AI is the smartest way we found to really like source the information, analyze it, filter it, and then put it into an infrastructure that's set up for it.
Okay. So that's what, so we may not realize as a consumer or somebody who's purchasing, we
Yeah.
see the bloated costs, but and a lot of us don't really understand the core aspects. It's probably pretty easy to point at the real estate agent. It's pretty easy to point at this and that. And I'm not saying those aren't part of the
hmm
problem, but that you're saying titling is a lot more of the problem than people realize on the consumer front.
It's yeah, on the consumer obviously pays the majority of the cost of it, but it's the source of the issue is that the information just isn't easy to find. That's why you have insurance on this stuff, because either the data is there or it's hidden in some warehouse in paper, in stacks of paper, and errors happen. Um, so there's no one necessarily at fault for it, really. Like the industry is just set up to catch error and accommodate for that, really. But the source of it is really just like data is old and hidden in warehouses and cardboard boxes, and every time you want to go and buy a property, you have to go through that. Um, it's infrastructure, really.
So it's a lot like when you hear about the government documents and they've got those warehouses of just paper that they're trying to get digitalized. There's a similar feel in that industry of it hasn't all shifted to technology. A lot of it's still paper.
Yeah, well, Tori and I just did a project like that a few weeks ago. We literally went to a warehouse in the Keys and scanned, digitized, and cleaned up this entire warehouse of archived title information, like building permits, code violations, all this madness. Um, and we had to go clean it up, feed it into our AI model, and create a database out of it. Now it's way easier, but prior to us having gone in, we literally had to go and like ask someone to go dig up a binder in a stack of boxes.
Yeah, you just have no idea about those things. And it's so easy in this world where we are so like the everyday user of so many things, or everyday person just in their life uses technology so much that it's always so mind-blowing once you hear how so many industries have kind of let themselves get out of control and never
Mhm.
went backwards to pivot, and a lot of times aren't even pivoting in the future. So there's just these messes and these giant industries that cause so many problems and so much manual expense.
Yeah. Well, it's built around it. So as the end user, as like the home buyer, you're not really going to see it. You're just going to be told the lawyers are dealing with it. Give it a week or two, and we'll get back to you. So as an end user, you don't care that much. You don't feel it. But the businesses that operate on it feel it. Those guys are going through stacks of hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces of paper in order to get that information to you. It's a massive amounts of work, and that's why you have errors, and it's the source of it. Um, we get the bill at the end of the day, and we say, okay, fine, that's the cost of business. But there is a more efficient way to do it.
So who in and it could be multiple people, but who is your client or customer for the most part in that industry?
Yeah. So we work predominantly with the insurance companies. So the guys who underwrite the title insurance policies, we sell data to them directly. We also work with the title agents. We work with mortgage lenders. We work with governments. We do government work directly to clean up the data at the source. Um, yeah, that's really like the core of our client base.
That is awesome. 'Cause how many years have you been running Title, which I believe had an original, like you said, different goal, but also different name. I I can't
Yeah,
remember what it was originally.
it was called OCL, on chain listings. We
That's right.
started it 5 years ago. And the concept was not massively different, but obviously the way the product developed was very changed a lot. But we really wanted to. Our first concept was how do we get the deed of ownership to a house on an NFT, and then we
Yeah.
realized you got to get the title, and the title is taking forever to get. So we kind of shifted and turned into title, um, and just focused on the data.
Are you eventually it's funny because it's like you're going back to do that. Are you eventually gonna go back to trying to have on-chain listings as part of your thing once titling gets cleaned up?
Well, the database we have is still blockchain based, right? So we still believe in that blockchain infrastructure. I don't know if we could ever get to a point where an NFT transfers the ownership. At least as for us as a company to do it would be a massive, massive lift.
Yeah.
But I think step one to doing that is build the rails for that train to move. And right now they don't really exist.
Talk us through, to take a step back but aligned, talk us through the importance when building out a company. And I know you've done multiple things at this point. You've seen different angles. Sometimes you see when the road seems to end somewhere or there's a bigger opportunity. Talk us through the mindset as you're building a company of the importance of identifying pieces that do cause you to have to pivot or it will be a catastrophic moment.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a lot of trial and error. I'll tell you, like you've seen me go through trial and error many, many times. Um, you've got to listen to the clients. I find a lot of entrepreneurs are so dead set on the direction they're heading that they miss what all the feedback they're getting. We did it too. We were guilty of it. We thought we had the right solution at the beginning, and then over years and iterations of really bumping our heads enough times, we finally said, okay, fine, we think we found the right solution, but it was very different to the way we envisioned it at the beginning. I'm pretty sure we redeveloped our product 2 or 3 times before we actually had something that was MVP worthy. So it's really listening to the people you're pitching to. It's obviously you have to have conviction in what you're building and believe in the vision, but it might be completely different to what you started with. So you've got to be open-minded and resilient enough to know when to keep going and when to slow down and maybe turn.
How difficult is it? Because I know this is one of the biggest, hardest traits for somebody to get over is feedback, getting that feedback, being willing to listen to it and hear it and absorb it, knowing that it's a passion of yours. You're creating it. It's your
Hmm.
baby in a way, but understanding the importance of seeing the other lenses people are looking at that idea from.
Yeah. So there's a couple of points to that. I think the first thing is you have to take yourself out of the center of it. Like unfortunately, we're just not that important. So people don't go out of their way to bash us and ruin what we're working on. Either they are telling us something based on their own experience, and then we should learn and try to listen to it, or they are threatened by us and they're trying to essentially tell us like slow down because they're trying to play catch up. You have to learn to distinguish that. Like an entrepreneur has to have just as high EQ as IQ. I think even EQ could be more important, right? You have to learn how to decipher people, and that was tough. I think we at the beginning had no clue what the difference was between someone trying to guide us in the right direction and someone telling us it wasn't possible because they found us to be a threat. Um, just never take anything personally. I think you just got to learn to understand people's motives and use it to your own benefit.
It's sad that that's how it is so often in all industries. There are snakes in the grass, as they say. A lot of friends turn to enemies and or people that seem friendly. They're friendly to an extent. You know, it's almost the friends close, like enemies closer type moment.
Yeah, but
It's
it's
you
not
don't see
about
it
you at the
always.
end.
Yeah.
You might not see it because they're not necessarily going after you. They're just trying to uplift themselves, right? They're just trying to. Everyone has their own goals, and if you're in the way of some people, yes, they might attempt to tread on you, but it doesn't mean they are out to get you. It means they're just trying to take care of themselves, which you can't blame them for.
Yeah, that's a great framing. That's a great way to frame it and to take yourself out of the equation a bit because I do think at the end of the day, everybody's ego pops up a lot more than they want to identify it as their ego. And
Hmm.
that ends up being what makes them defensive, it makes everything feel personal. It's an attack on them. So I love the way you're framing that, where it's you kind of have to step away and that most people aren't actually personally going after you. They're trying to uplift themselves or whatever their situation is.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%.
That's so interesting. And mindset matters so much in so many things. So when I look at you and what you do, even on your personal side, how much does, and to give you guys an idea, he's done quite a bit of different fighting and martial arts training. How do you think that impacts some of your mindset, or where do you think your mindset and the way you frame even situations like that, where do you think it stems from?
I could ask you the same thing. You're a competitive athlete, right? When you go into a game, do do you see the guy standing across the field from you as your enemy, or do you just see it as a block to what you're trying to score? Right? When you enter a ring, when you enter the field, the guys across the field from you or the ring aren't. They don't care who you are. They just want to win the game. Right? So you have to take the face away, take the jersey away. You don't see who that person is. You just they're in front of your objective.
Another great framing. Another great framing. It is so much better when you can step away and look at things from angles that make logically a lot more sense, where the other ones emotionally can make sense at the time, but they don't make logical sense. It's like
It's
whether you're
difficult to do.
yeah, because even sports, yeah, you get and fighting would be example at any sport. You get the person mad, there's a lot less likelihood that they win in that next moment. They
Hmm.
actually will feel like they're going to win more because they might get more ramped up, but they're less likely to make a good decision. And that's why people utilize trash talk or little things to get in people's head to
Yeah.
try and kind of implode them in a moment, whether it's professionally or fighting or sports or whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever it is, like some of the best athletes were just really good at mind games. Jordan, Kobe, those guys were all crazy at it. They could literally get the guy to implode on himself before they even stepped on the court. Um, if you can pull your emotions away from it and basically allow your opponent to gas themselves out in an attempt to get at you, then you're going in chill. You're cool as a cucumber. You're not really going to be impacted by anything. You've just got to play your game, which you've practiced 1,000 times, right? How many times have like I kicked the bag you've like run a try, right? It's you do what you've trained 1,000 times.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting when you think about it because you even think about how big in the world that trolls online have become. And you think about depending on the reaction, if everybody reacted from a state of they didn't care about the troll, then the troll would lose all momentum. They, most of the
Hmm.
time, if you just respond positively to a troll a couple times and it doesn't feel like anything's happening, it might only take one time, but at most it takes a couple.
Yeah,
There's nothing for them there. Like they're
yeah. You
looking
take
to
their
kind of
strength away.
drag. Yeah, they're trying to seep away your energy and make you engage them for whatever reason on their end.
Hmm.
So I think this mindset, it can be so beneficial in so many aspects of like, even I'm not going to say that something doesn't bother me or whatever sometimes, but the more that you can step away with what you're saying in every situation, including somebody as your following gets bigger on socials, somebody will just say something crazy to you. You don't know them, you don't know anything. It does nothing
It's
about anything
inevitable.
makes sense. Yeah, and if depending on how you decide to respond is going to depend how much those types of people stick around
Hmm.
and feed off of it.
Yeah, you give them power by reacting and giving them what they want. You're empowering them. Um, and that's something I used to love doing is when someone would try to trigger me or pull something out of me, I would actively tell myself, don't give them strength by letting them know you are thinking about them. And when you take that away, suddenly they're powerless. They're not doing anything to you.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, and there's a couple ways you can be very positive back. You can not respond and just move on. I mean, there are multiple ways you can attack it, and depending on how well you can control your emotions, probably tells you which strategy makes more sense. If you
Hmm.
can't keep them in check, you probably just leave it and you don't continue the
Yeah,
conversation. If you can, it's very hard for people to receive positive statements back to their
yeah,
negative things over and over again. I've had people before where they said something just crazy to me, and I'm just like, hey, if you need to say what you need to say, go ahead. I'm okay, but I hope that you get this out of your system. I still hope you have a crazy good day or an amazing day. And I've had somebody just like, or some people just send me a DM like, hey, that message was kind of out of line by me. Didn't really, you could just feel it almost just felt wrong to them in that moment. Like all of a sudden
yeah.
it snapped out of the internet bubble and was like, I feel
That
gross now.
feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think mindset and the way we attack things and the reason I mention it is it can play such a big factor, like the mentality each day, because as an entrepreneur and as somebody building, but you could even say within a vertical of a company, we're not going to just say entrepreneurs are the only ones that have the like hardest task. There's plenty of
Everyone
people that
does.
are grinding to build something out in whatever they are.
Hmm.
And having the right mindset and being able to attack the day, every day, consistently is so important. When you look at what you're doing and especially in the entrepreneur route, in the you got to find investors, you got to find people, whether it was last companies, this companies, what are things that you do on a daily basis on through the ups and downs to keep yourself in it and know what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. There's a couple things. One is I always stuck to my same routine, even when we were building the company and we had zero traction and we were just building from scratch. I forced myself to keep the exact same routine I had when I was working full time. Woke up at the same time, went to the gym at the same time, did all the same things just to not let myself get into a negative cycle. That was the first thing. Um, a second thing, I said my prayers every morning. For me, that's a really big deal. Um, and that was part of that routine wasn't asking for anything. It was learning to say thank you for the things I have, and that kind of forces you into this. Okay, cool. I have 9 out of the 10 things I've always wanted. I'm close to the rest. They give you that mentality. Um, it gives you a lot of perspective. So routine was a big deal. Um, and the thing that got me out of the rut a lot when things were not going as we anticipated was trying to force myself to stay social, force myself to interact with people, like learn from people, read books, do the stuff you would do if you felt like you were in a good mood, even though you feel like shit, is still pushing yourself into that.
A simplified version of fake it till you make it kind of.
100% fake it till you make it, always.
People don't sometimes people put some negative thoughts around that, but it really is how you have to be when you're building. You have to be delusionally confident that what you're gonna do is gonna be as hard as it is, that you will achieve it. Because
Hmm.
if you don't believe delusional to the delusional extent, and I'm not saying, like take this as like a generalization. Like there is a level of delusion that's too much. But if you're not that person who believes that this thing can be achieved, that most people don't think, and you're really going for it, then nobody else is going to believe it.
Yeah, why
Nobody
would they?
else.
Like as an entrepreneur, you hear no 9 times out of 10. Why on earth would that one person out of 10 say, "Okay, I believe in you," if you barely believe in yourself? You have to have that confidence in your not necessarily in yourself, but in your vision that justifies it to those people. If you don't have that, then it's going to be a dead end.
Yeah, you have to have it. And that there are multiple times in life as you start out, you have like I would say you probably similar. When I started out in finance, more on the personal finance side, you're talking to people that are 50 years old. You're talking to parents, friends, parents. You're doing all this stuff. You have to just have a confidence level in what you're doing because they have to believe because you do know what you're doing. You're just age is making you worry at that time. You're like, oh, I wish I just
Mhm.
had some gray hair. At that age, you're like, oh, I just wish I looked a little bit older. Maybe I should put some Just for Men right in this. But it truly is like if you know what you're doing and if you are honest in what you don't know what to do, then you're gonna consistently be able to, as long as you're pursuing action, you're gonna be able to iterate. And like what you've done with Titl, if you're pursuing action and you're constantly going for it and you're receptive, then you're going to be able to iterate and you're going to be able to progress much faster than the person sits around thinking about an idea all day long and never
Mhm.
puts any action in place.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, you need the delusion and confidence. I don't think necessarily in yourself, but you need to believe in the vision and that you are going to be the one who drives it. There were so many times where, when in what Tori and I were building, we had no resources, but we also knew that we needed help to do things, and we managed to get a team together who believed in it as much as we did. Um, I do not think we could have built the team we have today if Tori and I didn't believe in Titl as much as we did. Um, we had such a clear vision and end goal with what we were building that people ended up joining us. Um, and a lot of the guys who worked for us along the way literally found us online and said, like, the way you are explaining yourself on LinkedIn, or the way the content you're putting out should, like, I believe in the vision. And because of that, we ended up building a very, very strong team, and a light team as well. But we punch way above our weight class in that sense.
Yeah, talk to us about that. Talk to us about, in a world where it is pivoting a little bit that way, but it's still heavily bloated companies that usually have some pretty antiquated systems. It's things you're dealing with and what you're doing even with your company. How did you go about like establishing the right size, how to capitalize on that size, and then even looking forward, when's the right time to
Mhm.
add to that team?
There's a lot of variables in that we had to learn to juggle. So one is obviously the stuff we're doing is, it requires a lot of education, both technically and also just from the industry. Um, it is very difficult for us as a company to teach both at the same time. So we had to decide, okay, we need to onboard guys to help us, but we don't have enough time to onboard a bunch of people to help us at the same time, because we're just going to slow down the company's growth. So we ended everyone on our team has essentially become a title specialist and understands everything about, like, Georgia title searching, for example. Like, we've become insanely good at it, and it takes years to learn that stuff. It took us forever. Um, so A is, what pace do you want to grow, and do you have time to train a team? And B, everyone at a startup, in my opinion, should be a generalist. Everyone has to be able to handle all kinds of different tasks. And until you have the luxury of, now we can scale a team, we can put everyone into specialist roles, everyone has to be able to handle everything. Like when we had this the government project we had to do in the Keys, it was Tori and I scanning. It was, we didn't offload the work to anyone else. Tori and I just in our shorts went into the garage. It was boiling, and we scanned every single document in there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. They don't realize that in the startup world, because especially we can take it back to even the crypto industry and the blockchain industry of, especially of the past, which feels like it's shifting away from that. But we saw so often that people would get these raises and they'd get these ridiculous raises, and then they would individually put themselves in all these roles: CEO, CFO, CIO,
Mhm.
and they would title themselves up massively and they'd pay themselves just like they were in that role. And there's five people in that company. And it just ends up being this, most all of them end up being fizzle out and die.
Mhm.
But too many people don't realize the true effort it takes to run a real startup and be a real entrepreneur, where you are, it's going to start as you. It's going to start as you and somebody, and then it's going to start as you and somebody else, and it's going to be this really, depending on how big the idea is and how much funding you can get, for the most people, it's going to be a long, gruesome grind that you have to love the pain of it to get, because you may never get to the other side, but if you get to the other side, it'll mean everything.
Yeah. I think we were spoiled with the way the crypto boom happened. I think things came way too easily to a lot of people. And because of that, we didn't learn, like, the entrepreneurial journey the way I think it needs to be done, right? Like you just described, you have to struggle, you have to grind, put in the hours, learn absolutely everything you can about an industry, and then potentially maybe you have a 5% chance of succeeding. With crypto, you and I both saw this. We were able to get crazy numbers either through investors, through tokens, through grants, all kinds of different methods. People were able to sell and make a bunch of money very quickly. And because it happened so fast with so little logic, A, people took it for granted. B, there was very little infrastructure beneath it. It was just a big fluffy facade, in my opinion. Um,
Yes.
and it faded very fast, right? So, like, over the span of 6 months, everyone we knew in the crypto space kind of disappeared.
It's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, and it's not as uncommon as I think people think it is in new industries. Because what we have is, okay, a new innovation comes in, whether it's early internet, whether it's early .com, whether it's early blockchain tech. And at first people don't know how to, they don't know how to speculate or how, like, what is the price of a blockchain? So
Mhm.
we get these almost meme style, at the time they don't understand it, but at now we understand it's just meme style valuations. It's 1,100% speculation.
Yeah.
And they speculate that this potential future technology is worth billions of dollars. So then Ethereum goes to billions and billions of dollars, and all
Yeah.
this. It's a really interesting thing when you go from finance. Like, how was that seeing those things and understanding how you look at companies, but then understanding this new technology? How did you view it in the early days of how to measure success or investment
Yeah.
opportunity?
So it's a really good question.
Probably pretty hard back
It
then.
is. It was very hard, but for me, I think it's probably why I fluctuated towards physical assets so much, because that there was an intrinsic, like, fundamental value of that asset that I could calculate. I could come up with a value for a painting. I could come up with a value for a home. All those things. There's something tangible there. With digital assets, it was very hard because it was all very conceptual. And even with NFTs, when people would ask me, like, how do you value an NFT? For me, it was, okay, they're giving you a membership, or they're giving you perks, or the Bored Apes are taking you to parties. Like, what is the value of those parties to you?
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of come up with some form of a floor price of that asset. But it got extremely inflated because people, I think, were convoluting blockchain and the potential of the blockchain with token values.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily like even Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin isn't one for one with the value of what blockchain will become. It's just become the indicator for the blockchain. It doesn't necessarily it has zero correlation technically to what a blockchain is. It's just
Yeah.
a token that people follow.
Yeah, there's a lot. The what I think is most refreshing, and it may come with some pain from the industry here in these next years as it matures, but I find it very refreshing seeing people finally using these technologies and integrating, because when you're going decentralized, and let's say you're not planning to go public, you are wanting to stay on chain and you believe that that is the future. Well, then you have to create a stock version of your company that's integrated on chain to your
Hmm.
success. And truthfully, an on chain integration into your revenue and everything is probably even a more accurate version of value over time than a stock, which has, the price earnings ratio, all these different things are so all over the place. Like, if it's just the value on chain is this token integrated this way into your business's success, that it buys up this percent of your revenue goes into this thing. And from the second you start, it has this mechanism. And yeah, it'll have to get evolved a couple times probably to find what that perfect thing is. But that's super interesting to me to see these companies now coming out that are succeeding on, they're very early, but what does that look like a year or two from now with a token integrated into revenue from day one with
Yeah.
a 10 or $100 million revenue company?
It becomes the exact same thing as a stock, right? Because that fundamentally, a stock is literally just me splitting up pieces of the pie and saying X amount of revenue with voting share or no voting share is now on the exchange. It's the same thing as us doing a security token. Um, so inevitably, you'll end up with the same inflation of asset values and volatility that you have in the stock market. But I think that's what happens. It opens the borders to accessing those assets. But I think you'll have the exact same issues.
Well, I guess that's a great point. The speculation aspect, just because it's pure value is this, it doesn't mean that, just like with the tech companies, that people aren't going to bullishly overbid that on the projection of the future growth of the
Yeah,
company.
it's supply demand. Yeah,
Yeah. At least in that way, though, we have truly a feel of on-chain, off-chain, and then on-chain RWA from a tokenized stock standpoint. It opens the doors to where these technologies are giving people access 24/7 to these markets and allowing them to speculate in all ways. What is your view on that? The RWA aspect of even tokenizing a lot of stuff that's already out there, stocks, real
Yeah.
estate, everything. How is your mindset wrapped around that in the future?
So I think a lot of it is going to be redundant with existing markets. I think the benefits of the token market and even like the securitized market, securitized tokens and NFTs, was that you could get an asset to market faster. When you talk about being able to create like essentially a digital stock that trades on a crypto exchange or an NFT that's associated with a physical asset, a lot of those processes, either they already exist on old school infrastructure, and I think what's going to happen is traditional infrastructure will gradually become on chain, um, and then there's basically no difference between the two.
Yeah.
Um, or you're just going to have a redundancy where you just have duplicates, right? Like if you want to have a stock trade on the New York Stock Exchange or on a crypto exchange or on chain, it's essentially going to have the exact same value. It's the same as having it just on a different app.
I am interested to see that aspect of things. Is it going to be that regulation basically becomes everything has to go through the same process, or is it going to be a split market where you might be able to evolve into this market and the tokenized worlds are all combined, but there's almost levels? It's like this is the on-chain companies that are not, qualified for this level or did not go through the
Mhm.
process. So you can bet in this world, but they don't have the same stamps. And then there's the official world, and you can go on chain or, yeah, the merged version, which I think has both at the same time.
But then arbitrage levels everything out, right? Because
Yeah.
if, let's say, you have two even assets, one on the stock market, one on a crypto market, if there's an arbitrage opportunity, people are going to buy one and sell the other, and it's eventually going to level out. And if there is a fundamental difference, let's say like it's a venture, it's so venture that they won't put it on the stock market, it's going to trade either at a discount or at a premium because people want to gain access to this. So I think what happens is it all becomes flush.
What do you think? What do you think about the potential of a world where some of these blockchains that have their gas tokens, the Ethereums, the Solanas, the Avalanches, the different things that have their tokens, and they've been trying to re-establish a new tokenomics that makes it a little bit more aligned.
Hmm.
Where is your head at if we see one of these things go public? What do you think happens in that moment
Then
between
it's
the
basically
token
become
and
a
that?
token becomes a stock, right? By that definition, if a token ever comes out with the exact same paperwork that can get it approved for a stock market, then there's no difference between the token and the stock. So
Do
I
you
think that's eventually where things will end up.
What I'm thinking is, do you think that if one of these protocols came out and it was a stock at that point, but let's say it's Ethereum, the biggest of the big, but the Ethereum token still exists. Does the Ethereum
Mhm.
token get a huge price cut because now you can speculate on the company? Do you think that like is one of those separating moments where we really establish, oh, this is really the gas token and this is really how you get a piece of
Yeah,
this company?
probably. Yeah, you probably see the actual equity, what's it called, like increase relative to the token.
Um,
Because like that's actually tied to like that's a regulated asset now. So now Ethereum is legally obliged to report its earnings correctly to the shareholders. It has to, if it's paying a dividend, it's going to there. It's not going to the Ethereum token. You're suddenly like there's going to be a complete disparity between the two.
my my theory, or the thing that would make sense for those companies, and it might bludgeon the industry temporarily, is that we will see one of them do that, and
Hmm.
they'll do it because they can get the money for doing it, and they can basically relaunch, and it will be the moment that everybody once and for all says, oh, that gas token is not a stock. Even though
Yeah.
somewhat you know it, there's still people speculating in that way, and it's
Hmm.
not integrated. So we'll have this weird moment where we've got these companies that have been around for 8 to 10 years that have been, XRPs, all these things where people have been just speculating on the token. Then you've got the kind of the stocks, or you've got the fully integrated new ones where the tokenomics are exactly integrated to the thing. So you got the two polar opposites, and
Yeah.
then somebody goes, I'm gonna like our token's just gonna slowly die. We need to make a big move, and we're big enough right now to make the move into the stock market, like an XRP.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the first one breaks the mold, and everyone it shatters the whole group of age
All
old
the digital tokens.
gas
Yeah.
tokens. And then it identifies in that same moment the necessity for the token to make sense. So it's
Hmm.
a catastrophic moment into a full maturity moment, which is the maturity moment's happening simultaneously, but that big brewing pool of multi-billion-dollar companies that do nothing and make no revenue is all just sitting there surviving
Yeah.
and cashing out constantly their gas token that's inflationary.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually very interesting. I think that is when you turn crypto mainstream, because you're proving its ability to be regulated and completely transparent with the shareholders. Um, it creates accountability. It's a complete. It takes crypto into a whole new age, I think, if you achieve that. Um, and it also, like you said, it forces these companies to actually create real value out of the token and to prove it to the users, as opposed to treating it as a share when it's not really a share of anything.
Exactly. And too many people don't understand that. And sadly, I've talked to people in leadership at some of these blockchains, and they don't understand that. So
Hmm.
it's unfortunate that there is. I just thought of that on the stream, so it's not like I've really baked it out. But that now that I've said it, I've kind of thought that's probably the type of thing. It will be a big moment between the community and that chain, basically of a knife in the back.
Yeah.
But in that knife in the back moment to survive as a company, people will finally break the shackles of their commitment to these things that make no sense. And I'm not saying I don't love the industry. I'm saying some of these things make no sense to put money in because they have no logical connection to the upside of these companies.
Yeah.
People need to start preparing for a wild moment that could happen in certain avenues if the tokenomics aren't changed. But if you see the inflation of a token is 200K a day and the revenue of the token is 2K a day, what is the outcome you think will happen eventually?
Yeah. It's this was always like one of the big topics. Is blockchain is not a business. It's a technology infrastructure, right? Tokens, the way they are now, very few of them are actually related to a real business model, which is actually why I loved like the GameFi space, because they actually created a business model that exists in a platform.
Yeah.
So that made a ton of sense. Actually, like I never got very into the space, but I thought it like fundamentally actually added up for once. Um, so yeah, it creates a huge opportunity to actually prove Ethereum is a business that makes sense and it actually operates and pays dividends and it has profits, and now we reveal it to everyone. And this is the token that associates with our infrastructure, and like our ETH token does XYZ, and this is why people would want it or not want it. Um, it makes a massive amount of sense to me.
Yeah, I'm pulling up this thing right now because I think this was a token that launched, a platform that launched, a tokenized platform that launched fairly recently, and they had a pretty good overall setup of their token integration from the second it started. So it has basically, it's about a week old, and it's already done buyback and burns of $1 million out of what they've produced. And what we're seeing is this evolution of some of these newer companies that really are committed very heavily. Like they own the token to some extent, and then they don't take large amounts of the income coming in. They drive it into the token, so that you and them are on the same side of the house.
Hmm.
And if they succeed, you succeed. If they don't succeed, we all fail and we all eat the bullet on it. But it feels a lot different. And I've also seen now some tokens or within even this platform, they've embedded rewards within it. So if you hold this token and they're pairing it with pre-IPO stocks, they're pairing it with tokenized stocks in general. So if you're speculating on these different things, you can be getting every transaction, you're getting distributed
Hmm.
a part of the base pair. So for
Yeah.
Anthropic, you'd be getting the pre-IPO Anthropic token, or for OpenAI, or you could do Apple, you could do, you name the token base pair. So it starts incentivizing people to buy in and then hold, get distribution so they don't feel so like, I got to get, I think the culture has shifted so much to getting in and out of everything within 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that's too exhausting for the general person. It's not for the gambler, but for the general person who's looking to add into a company and see business pieces and say, hey, I want to put my money here for a year, 2 years. And if they keep doing well longer than that, it's it's an interesting, to me, a interesting pivot point in culture of where I'm hoping we'll see a split between, there's still going to always be the gamble crew, but then
Hmm.
there's also got to be this thing where if you believe in the business and it's integrated into the token, you should be able to comfortably sit there for 6 months, a year, seeing that the, even though the price is going to go crazy up and down because of these speculators in it, you think in 6 months, a year, this business makes sense at
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah, it's giving the investor like a true thesis to go off of, not simply like I'm going to get an airdrop of tokens and they're going to skyrocket. Like that logic wasn't sufficient to last. It's like you're talking about real infrastructure, like that, giving investors intrinsic value and fundamental assets to look at makes a lot more sense.
100%. It's exciting to talk about though, because it really, everything in these industries and what you guys are building and what I'm even seeing. I don't know if you've gotten the chance. I mean, and this is more in the trading realm, but from a platform perspective, not the trading specifically. Are you seeing some of these platforms like FOMO, where you have what I've got on about 3 weeks ago, and for me, it was the first moment after about 2 or 3 weeks of really digging in and participating,
Hmm.
of this switch where it's like, this is actually the kind of platform we've always been waiting for. There's no gas, there's no chains, there's no nothing. It's, you want something, you either connect your wallet, your Apple Pay, what, any form of payment, your buddy says, "Hey, buy butthole coin." You're like,
Hmm.
"Okay, buy." You're done. Whether that's a legitimate like platform, whether it's a meme, whatever it is, it's one click buys. Nobody, you don't even have to tell them what chain it's on anymore. You don't have to tell them why they need this token for gas. And I thought, man, this thing is going to onboard millions of people in the next year.
Yeah. It's all user experience. It doesn't even matter what the underlying asset is. People will fluctuate towards easy to use products. Forget what the product is even offering. If it's easy and it hooks you in somehow, people will at least try it once. Um, Even in the NFT days, I remember like the NFT markets that were doing well were the ones who were integrated with Apple Pay and Stripe and who were actually willing to handle the exchange of cash into crypto and set up your wallet for you and custodial, non-custodial. Like early days, those were like the first issues we were trying to tackle and prove that not every NFT and token purchase has to be a kerfuffle of me trying to figure out how to get the right token into my Meta wallet. And then like it was a pain at the beginning.
Even on the back end, now things are getting a little better where it's still the swap function, but even whether it's OpenSea swap, the arena,
Hmm.
anything you swap on now, they are doing a better job where you put this token in, you put that token in, and you click swap, and it deals with the bridge. But FOMO and some of these apps now, which FOMO is the probably the most user friendly one, it's, you don't even like, there's no chain symbol next to the token. There's no
Yeah.
nothing. It's, if your buddy tells you, and this was probably, if you think about our earlier days, if you're ever going to tell somebody to buy an NFT that might be good, buy a token, put any money in whatsoever, you had to debate do I feel like telling them how to set up a wallet, how to protect their assets, how to not click links, not answer any Telegram message. Nobody's going to double your money and send it back. There's like a laundry list of things along with, oh, it's on this chain. Oh, a chain is this. Then you got to get this token. Oh, you got the wrong version. You got WETH instead of ETH on this chain. Now you got to swap it. You knew you
It was never
potentially
going to be
had,
mainstream like that.
yeah, you knew you potentially had this long conversation. And then if it didn't work out, you did this whole nightmare of a scenario where if you go, hey, go on this platform, click buy, you're in. It's right there. Nobody's going to send you a message through that platform. FOMO's not going to have any weird interaction security issues. You're not going to, where Telegram. So it took me a little while, but then it snapped and I thought, this platform is going to have, this is exactly the area that retail and every new user is going to come in through, because they don't want all that bullshit. They just want to put money into whatever their buddy told them to put money into.
Yeah. It's the difference in business to business marketing and business to consumer marketing, right? Business to consumer is all about how easy is it for me to get you into the system, which is why we came up with like smart logins and Google login and all that stuff, because you click a button and you're suddenly in the platform, and an Apple Pay. Like, the beauty of all those integrations makes everything easy. No one wants to deal with the craziness that lies on the back end, no matter what your technology is, which is what Apple did so well at the beginning, right? It was just a really simple interface. It was dumbed down to the point where you could do like any task with a couple swipes. At its core, it makes life easier, and I think that's all consumers want to see. With no matter what kind of business you're playing with, they want the fewest clicks possible to get to the end goal. And I think that's what you have to remember if you're building something.
That is the case exactly, and that is the case with this platform. I'm not paid by FOMO or anything, so I'm not endorsing it
You
just
should
because of
be.
that. Yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited, but I'm also, my theory is, and yeah, we're going off track, but still on track because we're talking the industry. I have this theory, and it's probably not that crazy a one, but I'd love to get your thoughts because you're heads down on things, and I'm sure you're still tapped in on what's going on, but maybe you're not as deep in the trenches anymore. So when I look at something like how this industry's been and the amount of LARPing that goes on across CT, across, crypto Twitter, and a lot of people, telling you their P&Ls or telling you their whatever size. Everybody's got a screenshot of, check out my Telegram. I had 17,000 X's this last week, but they just scan every token that exists and then they take the screenshot. Things like FOMO and these social financial platforms, I see the next wave of financial influence coming through these platforms where people are making trades transparently. And I'm not saying there's no manipulation, but they have to prove that they do make that trade and they do make that money, and they get followers through action and evidence of success over and over again, to where I zoom out and I think a year from now, like the bull market starts kicking up, why would I go to anybody LARPing on CT if I'm watching somebody buy, or at least
Live, yeah.
if they haven't proven yet on a platform that they can do it themselves? Then I go to CT because I know I can see that they've succeeded. I'm now going to follow their thesis. So I don't know. I'm not sure you've been
Yeah.
watching
So
FOMO,
look,
but it's really interesting.
no, so I'm not massive in that space, but I'll
Yeah.
like, from my time as a trader, and I obviously like going through the whole crypto space, I always believed you shouldn't get into anything unless you fundamentally understand it yourself, or you're just willing to gamble, you're flipping a coin and let it be.
Yeah.
So like this social investing and investment advising like trend that happened basically coming out of the crypto boom and like GameStop and things like that are incredible, because now everyone has a voice. Everyone has the ability to put out information and show their opinion. The problem is the internet has to learn how to not take it as matter of fact. Nothing on the
Yeah.
internet is matter of fact anymore. You have the same issue with social media, with ads, with content creators, all of it. People, I have to be just way more careful. I think we just have access to more information than we've ever had in our life. And unless you are completely aware of what you're doing, you should just not be tricked into making any investment decisions unless you're aware of it.
100%. That's super important.
Yeah. So look, I think the whole crypto mentality was we build community, we come up with conclusions with each other. I show you everything I know, and then we do it all together. But a lot of people got tricked and scammed into doing things they probably shouldn't have. You just got to be careful. It's I wouldn't even call it an investment. It's just social media. It's the same thing as being conned into buying something on TikTok because someone made a funny video about it.
Yeah, you've got to be able to do, and you've got to know when you're just gambling. And that's
Yeah,
fine. There's nothing saying you can't gamble,
just own
but
it.
yeah, you can't pretend like certain things you're going into aren't strategic gambles. I know you have a thesis. I know that I do the same thing, but I also baseline understand that it's just maybe a more fun a different style of gambling
Yeah,
than at this table, at this blackjack table, this poker, this sports game. This is like a social gambling. Like this attention is going to be higher on this, and there's going to be more people interested in it in a week than there is right now. And I'm betting on attention.
yeah. That's really all it is. It's like how many eyes is this thing going to get on it, and are more people going to buy it following after I decide to make my investment decision? That's all it is. It's a slightly informed gamble, but you've got to know that like it's slightly informed. It's not that well informed.
Oh,
And I
100%.
had the same thing with the stock trading. I was literally on a trading floor until I finished my time in banking. I didn't trade for myself because I realized like there was so much I didn't know, and that the guys around me also they were just following the bigger players. It's at the end of the day, there's like a tiny percentage of people who hold the majority of the wallet, whether it's a stock market, crypto market, or whatever. And unless you know what they know, they're typically going to win.
Yeah, it's a tough. The more you, unfortunately, in a lot of these markets, the more you know the scarier it is because you realize there's very few people who have the motion behind it all that
Hmm.
they always win. The
They
house
always win.
always wins. You just don't know the house is there in a lot of ways.
Yes. Well, look, if anyone's listening to this and actually like interested in like token launches, just Google like token launch economics, and you can see who holds what percentage of the token balance the day a token goes live, and who's allowed to sell what on what day. Because if you know that, you can pick up every trend on every new token that goes out.
It was funny because when you look at SpaceX's IPO, it was one of the first times that it had the feel of an ICO from back in the day, where there's just low float coming out. Everybody basically it was all locked up, but somehow it still worked its way endlessly down. Like it
Hmm.
was but everybody was kind of betting on that. They were using their crypto knowledge to say, oh,
Yeah.
well, even though it's so huge, he owns so much of it. Maybe, just maybe, there's something that could happen here. And it's a
Well, yeah. Well,
$1 trillion.
that's the beauty with the stock market is you can actually get insights into what the pre-IPO shareholders were tied into. And then you can really just like calculate, okay, fine, if this guy bought in at $10 and it IPOs at 20, okay, he's more than likely to start selling because he's made his money.
Yeah.
It's just it's logical.
It was interesting seeing too that there were some of these IPOs were dragging out so long that you were having people getting entries into the IPO for like 2 years at
Hmm.
different levels, all the way up to the point of being in the trillions. And you hear people that said, "Oh, I just got talked to, but 6 months ago I got it at a tenth of that price. So obviously I'm not going to buy it at this price."
Yeah. Yeah, there was a few opportunities going around. I had it presented to me, I think a year ago, year and a half ago, even for SpaceX.
It's a while. That's the thing. It's sometimes it's hard just locking stuff up for that long too, depending what you're doing
You never know
and
if
the
it's actually going to
size.
make it.
Yeah, and those people usually size in pretty good. There's a lot of funds, a lot of big money to where they just take
Hmm.
shots all over the place.
Yeah, well, obviously those guys can throw $100,000, $200,000 like nothing.
Oh, 100%. Well, looking at there's one more thing I wanted to cover with Titl, and then I'll give you a chance to say however you want to kind of wrap up and tie things with a bow. But the thing that I want to talk about, and I was looking up and saw that I wrote it down here, that there's a ton of fraud inside the industry. And
Hmm.
I know we haven't identified that, but I got to imagine it's a very big piece of what you're trying to fix.
Hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about fraud within the industry, and how does somebody even kind of get control of someone's title or get control of someone's house with these antiquated systems?
So there's a lot of ways fraud can get away. Obviously, deep fakes, AI, being able to copy someone's identity is like the most
Yeah.
up and coming way to transfer ownership of something. But the core of the issue is that a lot of this stuff is still paper based. You can still go to an office with a fake ID and fraudulently try to file something. Or we've seen family members steal properties from like parents, claiming that the parents aren't well enough to handle their assets. Things like this. We've seen all kinds of crazy cases. Um, and there's a couple of things, but I think having a database that tracks and blocks assets in their place until there's the proper verification is a huge value. So that's why we began with the concept of a blockchain is great, because only the private key can move this asset around. The other thing is with the data is so stagnant that someone could transfer ownership of your property 5 years ago, but until the day you try to go and sell your house, you have no clue because no one's looking at it, which is a big part of our philosophy, is that this data needs to be live and tracked every day. It shouldn't just be checked the day you try to sell the house. So live databases it's a huge selling point for us. We fundamentally believe the whole real estate market needs to be on a live database. It shouldn't be done every 10 years when someone sells the house. Tracking and monitoring your property, that's a big thing. So obviously lenders will do it. When you take a mortgage out on your house, the lender needs to know if you've taken out a second mortgage or if you've transferred the ownership of the house to your wife and then you've kept the mortgage. There's things like that the lender needs to know,
Yeah.
but they're only checking it manually every year, 2 years, because they have to. It should be every day. I don't understand why a lot of this stuff was kept paper based, but AI makes it easy.
Yeah, Ted, I had no idea. I had no idea that a lot of these pieces were there. I mean, obviously, fraud is everywhere, but seeing that they're able to take advantage of these paper systems, and that it's a lot of people, if you got tons of paperwork, it just takes one employee or one thing. They know you're not looking at the big stack sitting in a thing. And
Mhm.
there's plenty of people who will play the long game and just slowly work somewhere and seep away these different things. It's kind of crazy. That's another just huge gap in what you guys are doing, fixing just what would be just a really annoying thing to find out that you might not find out for years.
Yeah, why would you? The reality is,
Yeah.
like, you're not touching and interacting with this information, and people will wait until the last second to do it. It's a manual process. You have to deal with numerous intermediaries to get it done. It costs a fair amount of money. Why are you going to do it until you absolutely have to? But the system we operate on now is reactive, and the system Titl's trying to build is preventative. It's a very different way to look at it, but it also takes a fair amount of time to develop it, and then also to get market adoption. It takes time.
Yeah, unfortunately, in security, it's it, I saw this in tech a lot, where the money that goes into security, even though it's tech, people just think, oh, they're just gonna, really put a ton of emphasis on it. They do, but they don't put nearly as much as when something happens. Like something
Hmm.
happens, and then it's
You're all on it.
throw a millions, billions of dollars at this thing when you could be preventative. But people think, but if I'm paying all that money, what if it doesn't happen? What if it
Yeah.
doesn't happen? So it is really unfortunate, but it always becomes a no-brainer at one point. What you guys are building is going to become a no-brainer at one point, but it just takes people those shakeups and the
Hmm.
seeing the evolution.
Yeah.
Where
Go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, where are you all focused right now? How much coverage do you have on in your focus area at this point on getting these systems all upgraded?
So we're live in a handful of states. I'm going to say around
Okay.
5 at this point. We for, like with our clients, our clients have been incredible with us because they've believed in us at conception, and now we've become full production size products. But it's proven itself in, like you described, being preventative is not appealing or sexy. I think what we did is we showed to people that you can build a product that's going to make you money or help you improve your margins or improve your customer experience. And on the back end in the process, you're actually creating something that's much more sustainable. So the way we did it is we created a searching product because everyone has to do title searching that as we search creates a database, and that database is becoming more and more valuable the more we search. So it's you have to decide, are you putting the horse first or the cart first, right? So we decided we're going to actually find a way to create value for our clients in a way that will backload our database, and now we're starting to see to reap the benefits of a better infrastructure.
Really smart positioning on their pain points or their benefits. Like time, obviously, that system's got to suck when you work there, and it's got to spend, you've got to pay people for all these hours doing these things. Secondly, like you said, all of the costs associated with that time suck, then eliminating that so profit margins can go up.
Exactly.
So important. What you're talking about right here. That's why I'm highlighting it extra is being able to understand positioning of your product, platform, service
Mhm.
to the people you want to use it, knowing for you and for all of us, or maybe consumers, we are like, oh, I want my title to be safe and all that. But for these companies that don't want to move very fast and all this stuff, it's a different conversation. It's about the business, it's about how this
Yeah.
helps them succeed. So that's so important, the
Yeah.
way
Well,
that you got there.
it was we I think we hit a roadblock at a point in our development where we said, okay, we could make a product that's incrementally better for the client, but is going to end up building this infrastructure, or we can put all our focus on making this process 60% more efficient for them, where they don't have to offshore work, where they don't have to do manual review of documents, where they don't have to handle paper to this extent. And now their process actually makes them profit as opposed to being a loss leader. Um, it was a big shift in our focus, but we had to make the decision: are we going to become incrementally better, or are we going to completely try to redefine this process for them?
Smart move. Smart move. How big of a pivot did you notice in interactions and receptiveness to the clients once you identified and attacked that new method?
Massive. And it was around the same time we rebranded to Titl. Like
Okay.
we were flatlined for a while, really trying to find our footing with the business. um the moment we rebranded and decided this is going to be the angle, which, like, right at the beginning of the podcast we mentioned, like, we heard what our clients were saying and we found the gap in the market that we needed to fill.
Yeah.
um Once we started listening to that more, it it grew exponentially because our sales pitch worked, our investor pitch, like, we were able to prove the market size. We weren't selling a vision of new infrastructure, we were selling a vision of, we've redefined a product class for our users. um that's where it kind of picked up.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, that pivot. And immediately it was, I heard it and I thought, oh, obvious move for a business then, the way that's framed. Super interesting to hear some of those different things, the way you're attacking the industry. Super interesting to hear your mindset as you attack each day. I'd love to get some of your final thoughts around, giving the listeners an opportunity to hear from you in regards to title, in regards to mindset, in regards to anything that you want to leave as a last note to people on here, soaking in everything you're saying today.
Oh, there's so many pieces of advice, especially to someone trying to build a business. um I would say resilience. It's Being an entrepreneur is one of the hardest gigs on the planet because you're being told no 10 times more than you're being told yes. whether it's someone believing in your idea or or fundamentally like wanting to invest in you, investing time into you. Most of the time, everyone tells you no, and learning to decipher those no's into, okay, this is, I actually can learn something from this, or this is someone trying to hold me down, and then learning how to maneuver around that is very difficult. And only the catalyst of life will help you develop that. I think you have to just get through, you have to go through it 1,000 times and just learn from experience, which is what makes being an entrepreneur difficult, is that there's no one to guide you through that road. It's you yourself, and you're just trying.
And your
um,
buddies like
and your
me
buddies.
and everybody else. Yeah, that's the other thing is he's got it spot on, the effort and sticking through things, and then having people like a co-founder that you really trust, networks you really trust. Is he had mentioned, to wrap up, to kind of circle around on what he said, keeping routines, fighting through the moments to know, why you're doing things every day and what's going to keep you mentally in the game. And for him,
Yeah.
prayer, workouts, getting up on time, you getting exercise in, all of those things. When times get tough, you can't pivot because your mental clarity will go with that pivot. If you all of a sudden sleep in late, your times are tough, and your diet gets bad, you stop moving. It's it's a quick track into depth at that moment.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's always so important to have a good co-founder, always having a good partner with you to be strong when you're weak and weak when you're strong, and then you can balance each other out. It is very difficult to be a founder on your own, guiding the direction of everything every day. It's not. I think emotionally it's heavy.
Yeah, it's a tough world out there, and we got to have the right people, the right networks, and that's why I'm always going to bring on people that I really trust on the stream. Ori being one of them. Also, obviously, one of our best looking guests, and we always look for that as well. So it's something that we always appreciate. Definitely, Ori. How do they find you? I know you're heavy on LinkedIn. What should they be searching? Is it just the name, or what socials? How do they interact with you?
Yeah, we're very very active on LinkedIn. You can find me using the Titl page, Titl. My personal LinkedIn is always active. Um, that's the best way, or on the Titl website.
Love that. Love that. Definitely give Ori a follow. We will have him back on as well. We will continue to keep in touch with people that are making big moves in the industry, and we hope to always come back to them thriving and absolutely crushing it in the industry that they're taking over.
And you too, man. Thank you.
I love to hear it. Appreciate everybody for coming out. Again, thank you to the sponsor, the Arena. About 100 people over there listening live, active in the chat. Glad to have everybody out. We will see you all on Friday at noon. Have an amazing Tuesday. Enjoy your summer, everyone.